Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me for this month's reading journal recap. Just like in March, we're going to jump right in and start at the beginning of my journal. I'm really excited about this month because I get to check off not one, but 2 of my reading goals. First, I can check off read 20 books, and next, I can also check off read 10 physical books, which was a stretch goal for the year. I'm really quickly getting back into the groove of reading physical books and enjoying it so much. So I'm going to make another stretch goal for myself. Read 20 physical books. I'm going to skip past my books to read page as I didn't get to any of the books on that list this month. After not reading anything from my recommended reads last month, I made up for it in April by reading both Ash Princess and The Wonder. I rated Ash Princess as a 4 out of 5 and The Wonder as 5 out of 5. Both were really solid reads and suggestions. Thank you so much, Riley and Melissa. Up next is one of my favorite spreads, my 2025 visual bookshelf. As always, I'm going to add in the titles of the 5 books I've read this month and color them in according to their genre. This month's reads include Dragons of a Lost Star, The Wonder, Bride, Ash Princess, and Lady Smoke. April was a surprisingly great reading month, despite only completing 5 books. There was a really good variety of genres represented, and all the books ended up being highly rated, with 3 out of the 5 being 5-star reads. It made for a fun and very engaging reading month, especially since one of the books took me by complete surprise by how much I enjoyed it. I was also able to get caught up a bit with 2 reads coming off of my recommended reading spread, since I didn't get to any the prior month. This bookshelf is slowly but surely filling out, and I'm loving how it looks so far. Flipping the page, let's fill in our updates for the series tracker spread. I started another new series this month, the Ash Princess Trilogy. I read both the first and second books, so I'll gray those in. I also read the second book in the War of Souls trilogy, so I'll fill that in too. We're going to skip over the next page, as I didn't have any DNFs this month, and go straight into filling out my book log and visual tracker. In the book log, I'm going to add in the 5 books I read this month, starting with Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I picked this book up at the library just kind of on a whim because I'd seen it mentioned on a lot of other reading vlogs and lists, and boy oh boy, I was not disappointed. This book, which is considered a paranormal romance/romantasy between a vampire and a werewolf, hooked me immediately and took me on the most wild and incredible ride. I really wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but it was honestly so great. The world building, intertwining plots, and intrigue played a huge role, while the enemies to lovers romance plot was more subtle and wove everything together. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Next up was Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. This was a YA/fantasy read about a princess who is being held captive under an oppressive regime that murdered her mother, the Fire Queen, and holds the rest of her people enslaved. It was an interesting read with lots of political intrigue, a love triangle, and of course, some magic. I found the first half of the book a little bit slow, but once things picked up, they were off to the races. I listened to this one via audiobook, and the narrator, Saskia Marleveld, really made the characters and their voices unique and memorable. I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. The third book for this month was Dragons of a Lost Star by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. This was the second book in the epic fantasy series, The War of Souls trilogy. This book picked up where the first left off and set a brisk pace right from the get-go. There was never a dull moment, and the characters became even more engaging and interesting as their paths continued and intertwined. There was magic, dragons, epic battles, and heartbreaking loss. It was everything I could ask for in a fantasy story. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. The next book on the list is The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. This book was recommended to me by several people, so I was really looking forward to reading it to see if it lived up to the hype. Spoiler alert, it totally did. While I initially found the first third of the book a little slow, and I didn't really love the main character, that all changed by around the halfway mark when things quickly picked up. I felt like I was on the edge of my seat as more details and events began to unravel, and even now, almost 2 weeks later, I can't stop thinking about it. It was engaging, heartbreaking, and almost a cautionary tale in a way. I'm so glad that this was suggested to me. 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book for the month was Lady Smoke, again by Laura Sebastian. This is the second book in the Ash Princess trilogy and carried on from the first book with our protagonist, Theodosia. In an effort not to spoil anything, I'll just say that if you enjoyed the first book, the second expands on the political intrigue, love triangles, found family aspect, and the sense of duty that Theo has to her people. I felt the pacing in this book was much better than the first, and that there were a lot of interesting things going on to advance the overall plot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next, I'm going to flip the page and add in all of the covers with their ratings to the visual tracker spread. Because I read 2 of the 3 Ash Princess books this month, I'm going to cheat a little and put them together just to look cohesive, even though they were finished at different times during the month. I've already started the last book, Ember Queen, so hopefully we can put all 3 together when I finish May's reading recap next month. Let's flip the page and unveil the April book of the month. I'm not gonna lie, this was a really, really tough decision to make because I had 3 5-star books to choose from. I thought long and hard about it, but in the end I chose Bride, based solely on the fact that it took me by complete surprise, and I found myself not wanting to put the book down. Even though the other 2 didn't make the cut, I have a strong feeling that one, if not both, might make it onto the best of the year spread. We'll just have to wait and see what the rest of the year brings. Let's flip over to the yearly stat spread and add in this month's numbers. In books to read this month, I'll fill it in with 5 books read. Am I the only one seeing a trend here? For reading types, I read 3 physical books and 2 audiobooks. In books by the page, I read 1 book in the 1 to 200 plus pages column, 1 in the 300s, 2 in the 400s, and finally 1 in the 600s. Editor's note, I made a mistake here. It actually should have been 1 in the 500s. Oops. For genres read this month, I'll add 1 in fantasy, 2 in YA, 1 in historical fiction, and 1 in romance. And lastly, for when was it written, I'm going to add 1 in the 2000s column, 3 in the 2015s, and 1 in the 2020s. Moving on, let's flip over to our monthly overview for April and fill in all the details. For total books read, I'll add in 5, and I'll also add 2,185 for total pages read this month. That's a lot of pages for only 5 books. As we just saw, April's best book was Bride by Ali Hazelwood. And for the worst, I chose Ash Princess, only because I felt that it had some slower pacing issues at the beginning compared to the second book in the series, Lady Smoke. Next, I'll once again log all the books I read this month, along with the date I finished them, how many pages each book had, and finally, their rating. Lastly, I'll fill in my mini calendar, putting a dot on each date that I've finished a book in its corresponding genre color. I really love the soft pink and brown colors on this spread. It's so reminiscent of spring and all the flowering cherry and magnolia trees. So pretty. Let's continue by flipping to the back of my journal and adding the media I consumed this month. On the TV shows and series watch spread, I'm going to add It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Season 16, which I rated a 4 out of 5. We're longtime fans of the show, and in this season, we got to see some of the usual antics from the Paddy's Pub gang doing what they do best. Turning the page, let's add to the movies watched spread. This month I watched 4-ish movies. I say ish because my husband and I attempted to watch Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but we ended up calling it quits about halfway through the movie. Sorry, Indy. The movies I'm adding to the log this month are the following: Gladiator 2, which was just okay for us. We felt it didn't have the charm or feel of the original film, and it used way too much CGI. I gave this 3 stars. The Revenant. Both my husband and I were really excited to see this one after we'd both read and loved the book. I didn't love that they deviated from the novel as much as they did, but overall it was a great movie that represented the novel pretty well. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. And finally, The Wonder. I watched this immediately after I finished the book, and although there were some deviations, kind of like The Revenant, I still very much enjoyed this movie, and I felt it represented the novel it was adapted from very well. The soundtrack was hauntingly beautiful and incredibly unique. I also rated this 4 out of 5. Next up is the Besties Binge Watch page. On April 17th, my friend and I finished our watch of The Midnight Club. Much like all of the other Mike Flanagan shows that we've watched and loved, we really enjoyed this one as well. We thought the show was a standalone like all of his others, so we were both really thrown off at the ending when a bunch of different plots and questions were left hanging. It wasn't until later that we found out that there had been a second season planned, but Netflix had canceled it. What a letdown. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Right about here, you can see things went wonky. I didn't notice this at all while filming, but the device holding my camera was very slowly slipping until it popped out of the holder altogether. We embrace mistakes around here, right? Anyway, as you can see, we then started The Residence on April 30th. The first episode was great and had a blend of thriller/mystery and comedy that really hooked us. I'm really looking forward to watching more of this. Lastly, let's flip the page and add in a game to the 2025 Games Played spread. I'm going to add in one of my all-time favorite games that I come back to year after year, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is a farming sim, but it's so much more than that. You get to live your life as a simple farmer, make friends, battle monsters in the mines, and fish to your heart's content. This is a cozy game that anyone can enjoy, and I highly recommend it. And just like that, we've finished our reading journal recap for April. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next video. If you had fun and enjoy hearing about what I read, or want to learn more about books and journaling in general, please hit like and consider subscribing to my channel. Happy reading, and see you in the next one. Bye!